Hello, prairie people. I'm really sorry. I've been talking for about 10 minutes. I forgot to push the last critical button to go. So I apologize. I'm really sorry about that. But here we are, out on the Fort Worth Prairie, east side of Lake Benbrook. This is Corps of Engineers property. It's owned by the federal government, which means it's owned by all of us, and managed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Let me change the direction briefly so I can say hello. Hey everybody, I'm out here with Steve, walking the prairie. I'm Suzanne Tuttle, longtime member of the Fort Worth chapter of the Native Prairies Association, and I'm going to be your tour guide for just a few minutes today. First, I wanted to orient you a little bit as to where we are. So, this is a map I printed off of the Corps of Engineers website. We're on the east side of Benbrook Lake, which you can see right here. That's the main body of the lake. This red bullseye is where we entered this prairie. We're on the drainage of East Dutch Branch Creek. The actual lake, if you're not familiar with the Dallas-Fort Worth area, is in southwest Tarrant County, southwest of the main downtown of Fort Worth. Fort Worth is in Tarrant County, if you're not familiar with Texas, with this part of Texas. So anyway, let's go back to prairie walking. And let me give you a little bit more information about this site. I've got some notes here, and I'll just keep showing you this beautiful prairie. And I don't know if you can hear that, but that's a dickcissel, and that's a beautiful sound. It's the sound of a prairie. This is called the Richardson Tract. It's a remnant piece of Fort Worth Prairie on the east side of Benbrook Lake in southwest Tarrant County. Benbrook Lake was created as a flood control, recreational, and water source lake by damming the Clear Fork of the Trinity River. The dam was created and activated in was completed and activated in 1952. The Fort Worth Prairie, which is this beautiful grassland that you're seeing, it sits on a limestone lens of 100 million year old Cretaceous limestone that was laid down when this was all part of the inland ocean across the North American continent. The total size of this Richardson Tract is about 720 acres, of which roughly 350 acres are upland prairie. I see the dickcissel up there on that tree right now singing. The total open space around Benbrook Lake totals roughly 4,300 acres. And some of it is managed by bordering cities and also as the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers as designated parks, but the rest is managed as wild open space like this to protect the watershed of Benbrook Lake. In 2019, the Army Corps of Engineers entered into a cooperative memorandum of understanding with the Great Plains Restoration Council to cooperatively manage a large percentage of this east side lake property. I'm going to hang on for just a minute while this helicopter goes over. The Great Plains Restoration Council has a special initiative called the Fort Worth Prairie Park, and the Fort Worth chapter of the Native Prairies Association is cooperating with both the Corps of Engineers and with the Great Plains Restoration Council to provide education and outreach services. So this broadcast is a part of that cooperative agreement, and we hope to be able to provide a number more of these in the future. So let me tell you a little bit about some of the individual plants we're seeing. We're in the summer, the early summer phase of the plant community. So what we see flowering and coming up, you could tell by walking out here what season of the year it was without even looking at a calendar. So here on my left, we have prairie parsley, which you can see in this pale yellow, and there's a little wasp here harvesting some pollen or maybe looking for little bugs to eat. Prairie parsley is the wild cousin of carrots, dill, fennel. So if you're a butterfly gardener and you like having swallowtail butterfly caterpillars on your dill or fennel, this is the wild cousin that feeds swallowtail butterfly caterpillars out in prairies like this. Some of the other things we're seeing here, this is coming up now. You can see where last year's was. This is goldenrod. I'm not sure exactly which species of goldenrod, but it's a fall flowering plant, so it's coming up now. It will flower in August, September typically. One of the grasses that's flowering now, which is a little bit earlier than some of the fall flowering tall grasses, this is wild rye. This looks like Canada wild rye because it has a very long seed head that nods. And this sheath that covered the seed head is set far down on the stem. We have another species that's more of a woodland species called Virginia wild rye with a shorter seed head, and this sheath is much closer to the seed head. So this is Canada wild rye. Here right beside the trail we have, this is big blue stem, one of the most important grasses of this prairie. This is a fall flowering tall grass. How can I tell it's big blue stem? Well, way down here at the base, big blue stem is typically very fuzzy, and I hope you can see, because of this glare I'm not sure, but hope you can see how fuzzy this is. This will have very tall seed stalks depending on how much rain we get this summer and early fall. So one of the really important things to look at when you're trying to evaluate a prairie is diversity. Do you see a monoculture of things, or do you see a whole lot of different plants and animals? And in the case of this site, my goodness, this is a wonderfully diverse prairie full of all kinds of really high level plants like big blue stem. This is a colony of yellow Indian grass, another one of the important tall grasses that will flower in the fall. I'm really loving the dickcissel so much. They're so great. We do also have a few annuals that come up, even in a really high quality prairie, like Monarda, bee balm. Here's a perennial in the mint family that's very common. This is Teucrium canadense. This is American germander. Oftentimes grows in damp spots. So this area might be a little bit of a spring. Might be one indicator of how you can tell where there's a little bit of extra water. I see Gaillardia pulchella, the firewheel or Indian blanket out here. One of the ways that prairie management takes place, of course, is prescribed burning. And I do know that the Corps of Engineers does burn this on a regular basis, although I'm not sure exactly how often. But historically and prehistorically, that's how these prairies would have been kept open without a lot of woody brush encroachment. Here's a nice summer flower getting started. This is prairie bluet. 4 petals. This is in the coffee family, amazingly. It's also in the same family, if you're familiar with buttonbush, it's in that family. Sometimes even out in the prairie we have to worry about poison ivy. It likes the shade, but it likes the prairie too. So let's walk a little farther. Another education program that the Fort Worth chapter of the Native Prairies Association is planning for the fall is called Prairie Seekers, where we help train people who are interested in how to identify high quality prairies and what to look for. And we are planning to teach that class out here at the end of September, the last Saturday of September. So hopefully that will work out. This will be a wonderful classroom for a Prairie Seekers class. Okay. Here's a pretty, this is more of a spring bloomer usually. It's having a last hurrah. This is Sundrops Callilophus. Still a few flowers left on this plant. We have horse nettle, western horse nettle, right here. This is not a super friendly plant. The leaves are kind of prickly. But this is a beautiful flower, I think. This is in the nightshade family, the tomato family. So the flowers actually look very similar to tomato flowers, except blue instead of yellow. We also have lots of little wildlife to see on the prairies if you just focus your vision down small. There's a nice little orange and black, some kind of bug visiting that flower. Some more prairie bluet. I just heard a bobwhite call. Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, the bobwhites are really calling now. So we're just about out of the time I had set aside. I don't really want to keep y'all sitting in a chair too long. I think you should get out and enjoy this beautiful holiday weekend. But I really do encourage you to come out and visit this Richardson tract. It's open pretty much all year round, and there's always something different flowering here. It's such a beautiful place, and it's really a treasure that we have really right in our backyard. So I appreciate you being with me today, and I hope to see you again at another field trip.